Hi BookTube! Welcome to the History Shelf for our wrap-up of our Marple a month for February, which was A Murder is Announced. There's my version. Zoom in.
I think you got it.
All right. Guys, what can we say about A Murder is Announced?
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Because we struggled through The Moving Finger.
Yes.
When I read this was my first time reading it. I was just like, oh, thank God. You know, she's back on track. What was I almost had a visceral reaction to instead of fighting something.
Uh-huh.
That's why I was excited when you came down the stairs and you're like, I can't stop reading this.
Yeah, I couldn't stop reading it. When I started reading this, it was a page turner. I was staying up way too late, and I couldn't find a place to stop reading. Yeah. It has, the whole premise is so cinematic, and it was so well done. So if you're just watching and you're just because you're just interested in knowing about it without maybe even wanting to read the book,
you have to go.
But you have to go.
No,
you got to go read it. But
we don't want you.
Yeah, as for all of you who followed along and who are on this journey with us for a Marple a month, which we love doing, and thank you for joining us and being so excited about every new book that comes up. And we will announce March's read here shortly. But I've also put out a note on my community tab on YouTube about our March Marple. But the premise of A Murder is Announced is something. It's something that I guess was, according to Christie, a thing back in the day where people could just show up at your house and the lights would go out, and it was a game. It was called a murder game, apparently. So but I like how the book opens with everyone just around their breakfast tables reading the newspaper adverts.
The village paper, which everybody gets their juicy gossip from, they can intimate enough that they're like, oh, well, I don't know why she's selling that. Oh, I do.
It was cracking me up, frankly. I mean, the woman with the Dachshund. The Dachshunds again. What's with Dachshunds? I have nothing against the Germans, mind you. All of that was a while ago. It was very funny. Again, I just love. Christie has such an ear for people, clever people, and how they would talk to each other, and it was just the dialogue just gets me. I'll just keep saying I just love her dialogue.
It does so much. It does. It informs you of the characters. It also informs you quite a bit about their class and their backgrounds.
Yes.
And so their opinions. I think English racism was at its finest in this book.
Oh, we got to talk about that.
Just low-level, polite, everyday, non-stop English racism, which I'm well familiar with. But I got the tail end of it when everybody was sort of going, you kind of can't say that about these people and these people and these people. You can still insult the Irish, but the rest of the people, no. I was kind of shaking my head and laughing, I have to say, at some of those insults. I'm like, fucking English, really. This is why you have to be the bad guys in Star Wars. This is exactly why the rest of the world has decided you have to be the bad guys in Star Wars.
Right.
That's how that happens.
Right.
But so you got them all reading the one thing, and I just thought, what a horrible thing if you didn't like a neighbor. We got one guy up the street, and he has this Challenger, and he's just, we're ready to kill him. We've got babies on the block, brand new babies, 2 weeks old, and we've got little kids, and this guy, I know his door number. I'd love to set something up on Saturday night so people show up at his house expecting fun and games and food.
Yes.
It'd be horrible.
She would like to announce a murder at his house.
Because there will be one at his house if he keeps driving the way he's driving. But what a terrible thing potentially to do. But it's all taken in really good spirits. No pun intended.
Yes. Okay, so it's set up where people are like, well, this sounds like fun, because apparently they don't have much to do on a Saturday night or a Friday night but to head over and do a murder game. Let me just go through the quick rundown of the cast of characters, and let me just say, hands down, my favorite. I've mentioned this in other wrap-up videos about Agatha Christie. She has great names, right? But can I just say, hands down, my favorite name from this book didn't belong to a human being. It was the cat, Tiglath-Pileser.
Well done for you.
Tiglath-Pileser, straight out of ancient, probably Assyrian history.
And whose cat was that again? Because I can't remember that.
That was the cat at the vicarage.
Oh, yeah.
Tiglath-Pileser.
She's got great cat names. She's got Griselda now and Murgatroyd.
Yeah.
You couldn't. They're not names that you could scream at a dog at 2:00 in the morning, but you could scream at a cat because cats don't listen anyway.
So we start with the Swettenhams are reading the paper. We've got so they were kind of not too much from the Swettenhams in this novel. You know what I mean? I don't know. Well, the Swettenhams. I'm trying to look at.
Have we seen them before?
No.
Okay.
It's just an old lady and her son.
Yeah,
Edmund.
He's a bit of a.
You know, she's kind of throwing in people that could be possible suspects, right?
She lives alone, just with the son. There's no husband. There's no father.
Then we have the Easterbrooks, Colonel Easterbrook.
Yeah.
And his youngish wife, but she's
trophy
not really.
Wife.
Yeah, but he's like really old, and she's probably in her 40s or 50s. So
she seems to love him.
She seems to love him.
She thinks his jokes are hilarious.
That's right.
Yeah.
Then we have the vicar, and then Mrs. Harmon, right, is the vicar's wife. Okay, and she's also Miss Marple's dear friend. Okay. And again, we're going to go through the book first, and then we'll talk about the adaptations. So then we have, of course, the Blacklocks, or the Blacklock. Well, it's Leticia Blacklock, plural, but within her home we have
Little Paddocks.
Little Paddocks. What a lovely name. We have let's see, Patrick Simmons, who is Miss. I'm going at it from this is what we know when we start. Okay, is Miss Blacklock's young cousin, and he and then Julia Simmons, sister of Patrick, right? And I'm looking at right now, guys, because I have a nice little cheat sheet of the cast of characters here. Oh, and one of the two most interesting additions to the Christie panoply was Miss Hinchcliffe, and
wait. Also at Miss Paddocks, you've got you've got Bunny, right?
Oh, sorry, Dora Bonner. We love Bunny.
Yeah, so it's an interesting kind of mixed household, generationally mixed. So you've got sort of going into the book, you've got the three younger people who are kind of going in and out and beginning to start their adult lives and going to college and stuff like that, and they have some familial relationship with the head of the house. And then you've got this friend who becomes quite the character in Bunny.
Yes, I liked Bunny a lot.
Yeah.
Could you?
Oh,
are you?
Oh,
no, caught on camera.
Abuse. Oh,
Daisy hasn't done that since she was a tiny puppy girl.
Daisy,
did she ruin my? Daisy was caught chewing a brand new book.
Oh, shame! What were you doing there?
I haven't even filmed those books yet. I look over, she's licking it. She's gnawing on it. Oh, baby.
It's a love bite.
I love you. Let's get back to the story. Okay, so
you have the Blacklocks, and then Little Paddocks, and then you've got Hinchcliffe, right?
No, Miss Hinchcliffe.
Yeah.
These are the two that I'm saying are really interesting for obvious reasons, probably. And Miss Amy Murgatroyd, and I love Murgatroyd. That's a great name.
Yeah.
Let's see. Who
and they're
are we
really
missing?
good friends.
They're really good friends. Oh, and Mitzi.
Housemates.
I missed out on Mitzi, the Blacklock's housekeeper and
Mitzi.
cook. She's the young refugee from Europe. But and again, sorry, my screen was going to sleep. She is the what a comic relief,
but also kind of tragic. I mean, this is what I'm saying. But go ahead.
Well, she's very funny to me because she's got a great. Christie has a great ear for funny dialogue and
and how the English treat people of different nationalities. They're like, oh, the Holocaust. What a funny girl. Anyway, please get dinner ready.
Yeah,
and this poor woman.
No, I know, I get it. They're so they're very much oblivious to the plight
but
of
she
others.
She is given to histrionics, so I get it.
She is given to histrionics, but it's all kind of interesting window into that time in British
post-war,
post-war, because you also have the Swettenhams kind of like dancing around their housekeeper, like they don't want to.
That's funny.
They don't want to make her work too much because help is hard to find these days, and so. These little ways that Christie gives you actually a little history lesson about what was going on in society at the time.
I think it's a funny ongoing theme that I hadn't been aware of previously, that I want to know now, Agatha Christie, did you have a problem with your household staff?
Yeah.
Because it's like, no, don't do that. Don't tell her it's all burnt. Don't tell her it's raw. Don't tell her it's both at the same time. It's the same thing as Murder at the Vicarage.
You know what's funny? Virginia Woolf had that same issue. There are been books written about how she feared her staff, her household staff. I think. Stop it!
Oh my God! What is on
could
these
you stop?
books?
Could you?
What
she's
is
reading
on these
she's
books?
Stop trying to chew it.
I'm the. Oh, you are so lucky. I'm
Sorry
not
about
taking
that,
pictures
guys.
of
And
you
we don't
right
have
now.
editing software right now to edit this out, so bear with us.
You're a butthead.
So Virginia Woolf had issues with her, like she was afraid of them, and so I just wonder if that was like a bigger thing at in the post-war years.
Mm-hmm.
I think she felt that way all her life, though, Virginia Woolf. But Virginia Woolf was also very kind of sensitive and kind of.
She was fragile.
She was a fragile lady. But
Is that the setup in the
I
town?
think let's go with that for right now,
Yeah.
because then other people are introduced later.
Mm-hmm.
So again, one wonderful cinematic beginning to the book.
Great premise.
Great premise, keeps you turning the pages. People show up. I loved all the comments about when people arrived at the Black Locks about everyone's making the same.
Oh, you got the heating on. Oh.
They got your central heating on. I'm like,
That's
what
early.
is this like a European thing?
It
Must
is.
have
It's
been.
very much a European now. Once you hear the clank clank of the radiators, you're like, oh, they've got their heat on. See, other people are doing it. Why are we freezing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, another insight into how people were
But
living at that
also
time.
post-war, because Bunny makes a comment to Leticia about back in the good old days, we could have Coke whenever we wanted. Let me take that back.
Oh, the Coke.
The Coke was
Oh,
cheap, and so
God.
was the coal, and you could have coal then, and it wasn't a
Yes.
thing.
I wish I had. Okay, and I wish I had written down the page numbers for all the references to old women being called pussies.
Oh, I didn't think you were going to go there. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Well, no, but
I had envisioned a cold open to this episode.
I can't-
Where it was me going, but I want to say it, and you acting prim and being like, we can't say
Of
pussies
course
on
we
YouTube.
can. I mean, they're talking it in the way that they're harmless. They're like little kittens and pussies.
I gotta say,
pussycats.
I was putting together some bookcases for Peggy, and I was listening to an audio recording of this story.
Yeah.
Found on YouTube with Joan Hickson herself narrating, and if you can find those, they're delightful. But when Joan Hickson starts talking about old pussies, I just about dropped whatever hammer and mallet I had in my hand, and no harm was done, but I wasn't expecting that. I had because
Oh yeah, and then at one point, one of the inspectors is saying something about, "Oh, she's our 4-star pussy," and I'm
Yeah.
like, "What?" Is that? You know, you guys, we were going to mention this. I mean, I was like, my viewers know I'm going to mention that section. It was just so odd.
it was so funny.
It cracked me up
Oh,
in a
you have
very
a pussy
juvenile
too.
way.
What?
Oh God! So I can't. It's probably a good thing that I haven't found that page number. Let's just move on.
So it just made me think of Are You Being Served and Mrs. Slocum and her pussy. But anyway, she was always talking about her. Listen, it's British humor. You either get it or you don't. But I was just not expecting those words to come out of Joan Hickson's mouth. Anyway.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna move
But
on.
the point is that the inspector. No, it isn't. It's two senior
The
retired police.
Well, you got
guys.
Sir Henry Clithering, who
Yeah.
we've seen before.
And he's talking about these sources that they trust, and these resources that they go to informally for their cases.
Right. And
And they tend to be bitty old ladies,
yes,
old biddies.
Sir
That they're
Henry
just
Clithering is the retired head of Scotland Yard,
Yeah.
so he's friends with Miss Marple and highly recommends her.
and again says an important thing about Marple, that she always believes the worst in everybody, and that's the advice that he gives Craddock,
Yes.
the inspector.
Also missed one major person in our cast of characters, and that was Philippa Hames.
Oh,
She was kind of crucial to
she
the
kind of
story.
comes in late though.
She's she kind of walks into the room when I'm reading this book, and I'm like, who is this lady again?
She's the one with the son, and
She's a
she-
widow with a son. I guess her husband died in the war, and she's working to help the Leticia Blacklock and her garden or something.
But she's also being supported there too, a little bit.
Oh,
right?
she's living there. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's getting a little bit of support. Okay, so anyway, everyone shows up. Lights go out. Mayhem ensues. there's a dead body. So,
Yeah, 2 or 3 gunshots.
I'm just trying to figure out
Then
what
they
we need
turn
to
on the
touch
lights.
on. Yeah, and I don't think they recognize him at first. Maybe one or two do.
Bunny recognizes him.
As like a desk boy from a clinic or I don't know, a
hotel.
hotel.
Yeah.
So okay, so now we're getting into the investigation, and thankfully we're not waiting forever for Miss Marple to show up like in some of these others.
Moving finger.
Moving finger.
Yeah.
Yeah, Royal Spa Hotel is where they. Anyway, she gets right to the meat of it. Miss Marple is kind of drawn in pretty early on. Inspector Craddock, he has these moments where he is, it says, so chapter 8, we have Enter Miss Marple, so that's great.
only 7
It's
chapters
only
gets her.
90 pages in, and then, so Miss Marple makes, she shows up. Sorry guys, we're having dog issues here tonight. Is she still chewing my books?
No, she's not anymore.
I don't know what it is about those books. She loves military history.
Everybody loves Casemate.
Casemate.
Yeah.
Casemate, my dogs adore you. They want to consume these books. I
Literally.
protected them. Okay, I'm going to move back. Is your arm there? Okay. So I'm trying to figure out. We have 16 minutes in, and I know we need to also talk about the adaptations. So we're going to get into but let's talk about what you had a card full of notes you wanted to talk about.
Oh, okay. Well, now hang on, because we want to talk about so they recognized the guy. The guy was kind of this low-level, not troublemaker even. He had some petty crimes.
Yeah.
That he was
Yeah.
little forgeries that he was doing in the hotel, kind of like in Office Space when they altered the code in the system so that it rounds up or whatever, and they end up as millionaires. He's not doing the same thing, but he's changing 6s to 8s, and he's pocketing the change and stuff like that. And Miss Marple notes it and mentions it to Craddock when they meet, because she doesn't know about the murder at that time or something. He's going to her about the murder. She's going to him saying, oh, thank God, there's a guy here who's kind of trying to bilk me a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I'd never make a check out for that amount. And then, let's see, so everybody's wandering around who did it, but it's still kind of that Christie theme of murder literally as game, which is recurrent.
Because everyone's kind of talking about it as if it's, it is a game.
That they think that he might have shot himself, so it's an accident. So it could be a self-contained encounter.
Yes, they assume it's a suicide, which to me is asinine.
Yeah.
A man shows up or a person shows up, does a stick up, but then there are shots, and then he just says, "Oh, it didn't work out. Oh well," and shoots
or
himself.
that he tripped or something.
Yeah. So that doesn't seem. The cops aren't buying it right away either. I don't think.
And then when after the what they're all doing by talking to each other is you're hearing the different interpretations of the event. So everybody has a different thing, and that's reported back to Craddock as well when he interviews them. Everybody has a different James Cagney line that he said apparently before the actual shooting.
Yeah.
Stick him up, you dirty rat. You're all dead. No, it was all funny though.
Right. So essentially, he gets all these testimonies into a report. And at some point, he meets up with Marple in some fashion and says, "Here, why don't you read these and tell me what you think?"
right.
And that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And the thing she points out is like, "Well, you do have variations in what everyone's saying, what they saw." She goes, "But everyone seems to be not noticing the keen fact that they couldn't have seen anything.
Right.
The lights were out," which is so true, Miss Marple.
But I also want to say that shows a level of trust with him that made me appreciate him as a character.
Yeah.
I did like him a lot.
And I think he's growing fond of her. I'll go to that one page where there was a part during the middle of the book.
Well, you're kind of skipping ahead.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Well, no.
What do you got? What do you got here?
Well, she makes the point that because it was in the dark, they
Right.
couldn't actually see what they saw.
Okay.
Which leads to
I don't have it as
people.
memorized.
It becomes like, well, where were you standing? But Miss Marple kind of gets to the fact of it is that they were all standing, looking at the door. Or when the guy came in, only one person had their eyes closed, the vicar's wife, and another Bunny was actually looking. No, Murgatroyd was actually looking. She was looking in a different direction because she didn't want to be scared. She didn't like being scared. And that's when Marple and Hinch start focusing on, well, who did you see and who did you not see in the room at that time for those brief periods of time. And so then it becomes a question of like, well, the store is closed. Can you get in here? Like, what are the points of entry?
Yeah.
And then they realize, no, that's been closed for years. No, it hasn't. And not only has it not been closed, a second access point, but it's been oiled, so you wouldn't be heard necessarily.
Right. And then there were several pages or a chapter or two devoted to finding out what the motive could have possibly been. And Leticia Blacklock is adamant that I don't have any enemies. I don't know who this could have been. But then it's like, oh, well, wait a second. There was
I'm not
this
wealthy
guy
now.
I worked for way back in the day, Randall Girdler, who really, didn't have any family, and it turns out I might have been coming into some money, or I might be coming into some money.
I'm not wealthy now, but I will be very soon.
And then the question is, well, who would know that?
Right.
And then we find out there's extended family through a sister that he never talked to, and her kids, Pip and Emma. Mm-hmm. And they're like, who's Pip and Emma? Well, Patrick and Julia fit that profile with their age.
They could be living in,
and they were in the room. So it's, they have to go down all those avenues first. And
the what's really cool about this story is that it literally starts in one room. So you're talking about the focus being this here. And it's the people within this one room. And I think it's Craddock or says it to Marple. He just says it very bluntly. He's like, not only are they in this village, they're in this group. The killer is in this group. And so the danger automatically goes up.
So the danger goes up. Mm-hmm. And I was going to, am I skipping over anything now to hit this one point?
So, no.
So there was a point in the book where Craddock went from, it was jarring to me because I'm reading it and it's like, he's been really solicitous of Miss Marple. And then there's a scene where I realized after he did it for effect. He was trying to protect Miss Marple, but he takes a strong tone against her, calling her a nosy Parker. And he did it in front of Leticia.
Yeah.
Okay. So he wanted it to seem like, look, she's harmless. She doesn't know anything, because he doesn't want anything to happen to her. Because, as the book indicates, more than the Geraldine McEwen adaptation shows, she's a very old lady.
Yeah.
We were forgetting this. She's not in her 60s, okay? She's an old lady. So she's kind of, fragile and frail, but her mind is, as sharp as ever. I just kind of, I pointed that out. It's like on page 198. And he's like, be on your way. And I'm thinking, where is this changing character?
I wish that worked. I wish you could say that to people in the episode. Be on your way.
But he did it for her, and then a little paragraph she describes how internally he's like, he wanted to make sure that people weren't feeling that Miss Marple was onto it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a colander filled with water, and people are identifying the holes and the leaks, and she's potentially identifying herself through her sharpness and the questioning, and she's interviewing people too. Like, that's the cool part.
Yeah.
Like, is this somebody who could threaten me as the murderer? Could she threaten me? Or who's got a big mouth and who is going to be vulnerable to my plans as killer? Who's going to potentially get in my way? And of course that leads to the second murder.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. That one made me real sad. Well, they both did. Dora Bonner. Dora Bonner. She kind of proved clutch to this whole solving of this case, at least in Marple's breakdown of it at the end of the book. But
and you had an interesting first take on her. You didn't like her.
Dora Bonner?
Yeah.
Did I say that?
Yes. Yeah, you were very like, what's going on with her? Why is she asking these questions? What is she?
No. Well, the way I said it, what I meant to say was her reaction to the ad in the paper.
Right.
I said she reminded me of some type of Cassandra. Like, she senses danger coming.
Oh, you didn't say that. That would have been good.
Yes. So I didn't. I liked her,
protective.
but she to me seemed to be the one who had a moral. She seemed to have a moral. alertness, like, that's not a funny joke.
Right.
This is definitely meant for...
Right.
So she was very kind of pure in spirit that way, but, also kind of batty, kind of,
She is a little bit dotty.
little dotty, but she seems to see... She knew immediately, this little... What do you call it? An advertisement? Not an advertisement. An announcement. Well, it's an announcement. A murder's announced, right? She sensed right away, this is no good. This could be bad. So, I liked Dora Bonner. I really liked Bunny, and I liked her relationship with Leticia because it seemed like they were both, single old women, and they just needed someone, and they're, Leticia.
They had been close.
Yeah,
and then they went their own ways.
I like
that. And then Bunny came on hard times and reached out to Leticia.
Yeah.
And was brought in, and so that kind of accounts for her protectiveness because because Leticia is her life.
Yeah.
And so if the three younger kids or people are acting out or being cheeky, she's the first to go, get off my lawn. She not in a crappy way, but she always is. Why are you saying this? This isn't funny. Why would you do this to Leticia when Leticia gets injured? I told you they were going to kill you. I told you it was all about this. And I love the conversation with Marple because Bunny kind of says too much.
That's where Bunny says too much, and Marple was way too sharp not to have noticed it.
And
so what?
Unfortunately, so is the killer.
Right.
Right.
So she says too much, or she catches herself, and slowly, as more information comes in, we learn about Leticia's invalid sister, right?
Yeah, but even at that point, there's a side investigation in parallel going on between the two ladies with the sensible shoes who just like each other and are very good friends and sleep in the same room. And so I loved Hitch. The dogs have picked today and this evening to just be out of their minds weird.
Stop. Don't paw the floor.
I have no idea what's happening. But Hitch is very sort of not militaristic.
Well, she says
in her viewpoint, though, she wants to break it down. I really appreciated that logical aspect of her thinking.
Yeah.
Because she was like, no, you come in from this angle and this angle and this angle. Now, and then she kind of walks Murgatroyd through everything. And no, I didn't see anything. I told everybody, I haven't seen anything. I told the detective. And she's like, no, you saw this, and this person was this. And were they drinking? No, they weren't drinking. Were they And that leads to her epiphany.
Yes.
That somebody wasn't there.
Well, let's get back to Bonner real quick.
Yes.
Because
sorry.
I knew things were bad when she's having a birthday party.
Oh, God.
And she's got all of a sudden, everyone's sick from eating the rich cake or something. And then she has a headache.
Death by chocolate or
delicious death. And then she's like, I got to go to bed. I've got a headache. I'm all out of aspirin, or I can't find my aspirin bottle. And Leticia's like, oh, there's a bottle next to my bed. And I'm like, here you go.
Take the bottle of poison.
I don't think Dora's going to wake up. Bunny's not going to wake up. And sure enough, she didn't.
Yeah, she took some cyanide PM, and it worked.
Cyanide PM. You will sleep forever.
Yeah.
And
Leticia was broken up afterwards, which was very telling for different reasons.
Yes, thank you. I loved that part because she said something beautiful. Like, she was the only one.
She knew me. She was the last.
She was the only one who remembered.
Yeah.
And how alone. And Miss Marple, it was a beautiful moment where they were relating to each other. She goes, I know what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and then I thought about it, like, what if you're the last one of a group of people that remember all the old times, right? Mm-hmm. And then the last friend of yours who remembers the old times with you.
And remembers you in those times.
And remembers you in those old times. Leaves, is gone, dies. Mm-hmm. And then now you're surrounded by people, it's all new. They don't remember that time. They don't remember you in that time. And what another second type of death occurs.
And mourning, because everything now is secondhand. Whether it's a story that's been passed down, or somebody who's, my mom told me.
Yeah, so
that witnessing of your life.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was amazing how she can just, there's times where you get kind of like, wow, that's beautiful.
And then I think it's in this book too that Marple says, the Bible says it. Like she makes some reference to being old, and the vicar's wife says, you're not that old, you're not, don't. And Marple's like, the Bible states it very clearly. We have 310, and I'm well close to that amount, or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So death is presence in one form or another. But I should say that after the shooting, then Mitzi goes on a rager, and that's one of the comic / tragic highlights of it all. She's convinced that the whole thing is they're out to get her.
Yeah.
That they got her family during the war. This is now her time.
Yeah.
And instead these assholes are like, have you done the dishes yet? You know, so
yeah, and did you want to touch on that?
Yeah.
That there was some racism and some classism, I thought, in the book, especially pertaining to The Help.
The Help.
But I'd like to get into that with the adaptation, because one of them just changed the ethnicity completely, or at least the...
They don't quite, in the book they say...
Mittel European, which means Eastern European.
Right.
Which, you know, she could be Slavic, she could be...
Slavic and Jewish.
Polish.
You know, there could be several reasons why
Yeah.
she was targeted and persecuted.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
But Mittel European.
But her cake is wonderful.
Yes,
Poor
indeed.
Mitzi. We feel for you.
So yeah, so you know, so now the cops are like, wow, okay, now we have a second death. This definitely has to, you know, something's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Because they do the autopsy, right? They find out that it was a poison.
So it couldn't have been an accident. It couldn't have been a suicide.
Right. So then we're moving through the paces. They're both kind of exploring stories, you know, whatever, learning about Leticia's history, more of her history with her invalid sister, and all this kind of stuff. Whose name was Charlotte, by the way. So there's Leticia and Charlotte Blacklock.
And her earlier life, and she was a very capable, very, very capable businesswoman in the financial sector.
Yeah.
And so that's why she's coming into this inheritance, because her boss thought so highly of her.
Yep.
As does his wife, who's dying. But she comes across as a very loving, loyal, you know, she quit everything to take care of this sister then. Yeah. So a good person.
Yes.
So as the sort of the knots are tightening,
Yeah,
she's becoming more and more of a suspect. So it's like, well,
she is.
hang on.
I kind of suspected her from the beginning, only because there's a scene where right before the party, she's like, I'm gonna go lock up the ducks. We gotta lock up the ducks, and someone's like, I'll do it for you. He goes, no, I'll take care of it.
You can't do it.
And I'm like,
you got it wrong.
oh, you're slipping out of this room to do something,
Yeah.
aren't you? So anyway, but then I let it go, because as I was reading it, I'm like, oh, she's such a likable character in the beginning. Leticia Blacklock, I liked her.
She doesn't slip until the very end. The thing that I always thought was she's the only proficient person in the village of sort of eccentric, well-meaning idiots.
Right.
You know, that's more Agatha Raisin, but Leticia knows her. She's got her game on. Yeah. She knows what's going on.
She's about her business, as I like to say. She's about her business.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, but the stakes are getting higher and higher. Then there's that wonderful scene with Miss Hinchcliffe and Murgatroyd. Mm-hmm. And at first I thought, what is Hinchcliffe doing? Is she and then I thought maybe she was Hinchcliffe and Leticia had a thing on the side, just because of the fact that she describes Hinchcliffe over and over with her man-like haircut and her voice, you know, like, obviously they're lesbians, thank you. But she also kind of said in a way that Leticia kind of thought in terms of, like, you know, she was very
that's
about,
one of the things
like,
I have written down here.
So, and I was thinking, so there could be a theme here.
There are interesting gender roles and gender lines in this story.
Right, because then you have the parallel of Leticia and Bunny.
Yeah.
They're kind of living, but in that case, they're definitely just, you know, friends and not whatever. So, so you have this scene, and I'm like, is she trying to force Murgatroyd to tell a certain story to, like, cover up for her? Like, I was really sketched on that. I was like, I don't know what's going on here. But then I realized she is just trying to help her to, because she wants to solve the, like you said, she wants to deconstruct it, get down to it, find out who the murderer is. So she's trying to walk Murgatroyd through this memory exercise, and you get this very awesome scene where she has to run out.
But is it awesome? We're going to talk about the weaker points of this book, and I do think the one weak point is plot contrivance. And so you got this ridiculous sort of, I have to go because they don't know how to. What's it?
No, she had to go pick up a dog.
Pick up a dog, but the dog had been there for hours, and it was like literally one more sentence, and I'm like, you've got to be effing kidding me right now.
Yeah. But she says, you know, and then again, we'll go back to the cinematic juiciness of this, which was you get the the flashbacks of the flashlight panning the room,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
get the faces in the flashlight as it pans over to where Leticia Blacklock is, so that they can shoot her apparently, because she does have the
pearls.
The pearls, but she has she's showing. We forgot to say this in the beginning, but it would appear that she had been shot at because she's bleeding.
I mentioned the injury. But the pearls, for somebody, to shoot, just go for the woman in pearls, you catch her right away.
Right.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, well, this is a plot contrivance. Who is around to hear things outside someone's window? That just pisses me off.
Right.
That's
she had been there for 8 hours
I'm
waiting.
just like...
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah.
I don't like that, because it's like no one, even back in then, it's like who's walking through the hedgerow right next to your window.
That would have been a good
room,
outtake. Like if they've been the killer's outside and they're busy, so they leave and they come back. 5 hours later they come back. They're doing a crossword puzzle. They come back.
I'm like, how do you just happen to be there when they're having this massive breakdown of the murder? But oh well, that's the contrivance. But that ends up getting Murgatroyd murdered, and that was sad as well and unnecessary, and fulfills the lesbian trope that you can never have a happy lesbian. Or a happy lesbian ending. One of them has to die.
They've gotten around that because nobody's now lesbian anymore. There are other things. They don't identify, and then you can kill as many people as you want.
Right.
That's how
you go.
You get over it. But I was going to say, it's loose lips, both with Bunny and with Murgatroyd, and the killer overhearing both.
Yeah, and it all hinged on her yelling out, she wasn't there, which Marple was very adamant that Hinchcliffe try to remember which inflection, as she's running out the door in the rain or whatever to pick up a dog. Did she enunciate she wasn't there, or she wasn't there?
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm running out the door. Does it matter?
And
Miss Marple's like, yeah.
Companion's now dead.
And her life companion is now dead.
Lesbian life partner
who was strangled by the laundry, and that was horrible.
Another plot contrivance, given who the killer is.
Yes, indeed. So now we've got 2 murders, and I think
you got 3.
Well, 3. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they killed the young Swiss guy. So did we sum it up pretty well as far as, and then they I forget which is the thing that sets Marple off and lets her know who the murderer is. Well, should we just say it, because we still have to talk about the adaptations? This is going to be an hour-long video here.
So all of the junior people at Little Paddocks have revealed themselves to be people other than
Yes,
who they are. Patrick is Patrick, but then he's met...
Go ahead.
Oh, he's met somebody who's now pretending to be Patrick's sister, but isn't. Patrick's sister has gone off to be an actress, and she couldn't risk doing that without being cut off by the family, and so he's met this other pretend sister, and they've fallen in love, which in the adaptations there's a little bit of interplay where you're like, stop looking at your sister like that, so it all kind of makes sense. And then the woman with the war widow, well, he is the husband is still alive, or was through most of the story.
He was a deserter.
He was a coward. And so they were like, you can't be living in this. Very interesting. You can't be. You are just shunned.
It wasn't your doing.
You didn't do anything, but you're shunned.
Yeah. So can I just? Okay, so we're going to move into the Julia Simmons in the book was actually so Patrick is with. Julia Simmons is not Julia. She turns out to be Emma Stanfordis, Emma of the Pip and Emma, right? Who are the children of Randall Girdler's sister.
They all met.
You got to keep these things straight.
And
in a Christie novel.
The 2 women don't know that they're sisters.
They don't know. So Philippa is Pip, which makes sense. I don't know why I didn't see that until it was explained.
That was the only part that made sense in that.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Anyway, so everybody now gathers at Little Paddocks because Marple goes off with the constable to get the final piece of evidence.
Yeah, which was, I don't remember what the final piece of evidence.
But now you got everybody in the drawing room again. And and all of the cards are basically on the table, and this is the biggest sort of this is the weakest part, because Marple just unloads this level of exposition about things that we didn't see and we didn't hear about until she tells us.
That's
and she's like,
true.
so I went to the library and I looked her up on Google and it says killer, and that's how I know. And you're like, you Really? That's
No,
really how you
yeah.
do? You know, so it was a bit irritating because after all of the work that Christie puts in, she just goes, she writes in and then they fight. And that's the script for 12 pages. And it's
I
all...
didn't even consider that.
Yeah. Just like, oh, okay, you went and
Well,
did that.
however she got there, what we learn is that Leticia is not Leticia Blacklock. She is in fact Charlotte Blacklock, the invalid sister who had a goiter removed from her neck at some time, and so she constantly wears these pearls around her neck to hide the scar.
And so she gets really upset because she's still emotionally overwrought from having to kill Bunny. And so she's like, I can't stand it. And the pearls go flying everywhere. And then Marple, just by way of further damnation of the killer, sets poor Mitzi up.
Oh, as a trap
and
to catch
Mitzi goes with it. And I'm like, no, she wouldn't. She'd be like, listen,
I'm not going to.
I wanted to leave the house the first time. Now, 3 murders later.
Yeah.
These are my papers. I'm out.
Yes.
Bye. Instead, she's like, oh, you seem like a nice old lady. I will do this. And almost die.
And
in a basin of manky water.
Well, no, that's the thing. That's in the Joan Hickson adaptation. It looked like she was giving her a swirly. I'm like, whose head is she ducking in the toilet right now? I just see this lady pushing this lady's head in the toilet, giving her a swirly. No. And I'm like, what? Anyway, okay. So basically, Charlotte, Leticia came out to care for her. Leticia ended up contracting a
very sudden illness. I don't know.
She died suddenly.
Yeah.
She knew that Leticia had this money coming to her, and she had always had a life where it was circumscribed because of her whatever. She's like, I'm going to take her identity and go get this money.
Bunny suggests it.
And so Bunny knew, and that's the thing. That's a must.
Would you please stop injecting,
Bunny knew.
Please?
Bunny knew that Letty, who she calls Letty, was really Lottie. Because she had grown up with the two sisters, or she was a dear friend to both of them, but mostly Letty. But she was like, yes, why should this money go to strangers? I will help you, and you will help me because I can live with you, and you'll help take care of me. Well, apparently it was during that luncheon with Marple.
She called her Lottie.
She called her Lottie, and
she realizes the mistake, and she's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
which kind of draws more attention to it, but the damage has already been done.
It had been done. I thought that was a weird, that kind of, but I didn't put it together right away, or at all.
There is a line, yeah.
So, she wraps it up, Miss Marple does, in a bow. Edmund ends up marrying Pip.
After they save Mitzi, because halfway through or whatever,
and
she disappears again, and then she's strangling her.
Patrick is happily off with Emma. Okay, so that's great. 42 minutes in, but it was a great mystery. And there's Goldie. Hi, baby. You get to be on camera. It's been a while. This is our senior.
This is our Miss Marple.
Hi, baby. Oh, honey.
You are a good girl.
Okay, so now we're going to move into the adaptations. First of all,
great. I remembered liking the McEwen one more than I did when we rewatched it, but I remembered them as both being good adaptations.
I liked them both for different reasons. McEwen one I liked because I liked the casting. We had Keely Hawes. We had... Who else was in there? We had Keely Hawes. I like Keely Hawes.
We had Matthew Good.
She played Philippa.
He played
Matthew
Patrick.
Good. I love Matthew Good. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he played Patrick. So it was kind of like a little
Samantha Bond, who has been all over Downton Abbey, and played Moneypenny in the Pierce Brosnan Bonds. Right?
Yeah, we recognized a lot of the actors and actresses on that show, and so we enjoyed it. However, I am getting more and more creeped out by Geraldine McEwen's powdering of her face and her eyebrows. She's looking like she's been morgued up over here.
Yeah, she is so pale.
She's so pale, and then
which
she
only
powders
brings
it.
out the redness. I don't mean to. I mean, she's dead, and she can't speak for herself now.
I'm sorry,
but I don't. I want the makeup people to defend their actions.
Why do you powder eyebrows? Like they were powdered, and I'm like, she was halfway on to being a clown, the way they were powdering up her face.
Some of the scenes weren't.
Anyway, that's why, Joan Hickson to me is more fitting Marple because she is more frail. She's older than Geraldine McEwen.
During, so I've watched a few interviews with the surviving cast of that series. And they make a point of saying, even at the beginning, like between takes, she'd ask, "Can I go lie down?
Yeah.
Can I go?" Which kind of breaks my heart a little bit. But there is this aspect of both death and impending death and frailty.
Yeah. So to me and us, I think she best, she exemplifies. She is a living face of Marple because she is quite old. So, and then with Geraldine McEwen again, she's just too sparkly, right? Or too twinkly is what someone called
There's no frailty. It's all twee.
It's twee, and she's just, I don't know.
I would much rather have Joan living next door.
Me too.
I think Geraldine would annoy the shit out of me.
Yeah, so talking about casting, I enjoyed the Hickson version. So the lady who played Leticia Blacklock in the McEwen, the more modern adaptation, the more recent one,
Zoe Wanamaker.
I did not buy that for an instant, and she almost looked too much like Bunny in a way. I was getting those two confused.
Well, and I made the point that as long as I've seen Zoe Wanamaker in and she's a wonderful actress, but 9.5 times out of 10, unfortunately, she's completely typecast. So every time you see her, you're like, well, she did it. So there was no, hey, I believe Leticia on this one.
No.
I think the first thing I saw her in was Prime Suspect, and I'm like, you didn't do it, but your husband did, and you backed him up all the way. Yeah. So it didn't work for her being... I guess when she plays Ariadne in Poirot, she's a good girl. But she's annoying, but she's a good character.
Right. So, and then I think with the Joan Hickson adaptation... Also, the Joan Hickson adaptation is far closer to the book, right? Because the McEwen one, we're like, what the hell is happening here? They were sexing it up everywhere.
They were either off track or vastly condensing. That's the other thing. Hickson is 3 episodes. I mean, they didn't skip anything.
No, they went into the actual meat of the story, and I could recognize plot points. Whereas in McEwen's, I'm like, that didn't happen.
That was an hour.
And that didn't happen, and this is an hour, and what's happening?
You've kind of condensed, you've collapsed things.
They collapsed things, they kind of rewrote some things. I didn't care for it. But I liked the cast. And I thought that the Inspector Craddock in the McEwen adaptation was more fitting than the one in Joan Hickson. The Inspector Craddock...
I love him.
That actor who played him in the Hickson adaptation was great. He was fine, but he was more mature. He was more salt and pepper hair. Whereas we need to remember that Inspector Craddock, he's a young up and coming guy. He's ambitious, and he fit more of the age bracket, I thought, of the one who played him in the.
You were actually saying certain characters should have been swapped out.
Yes, that was mostly my critique. Also, the fact that I will always love the adaptation that hews more to the story itself, the way Christie wrote it. I don't want,
because it's such a good story.
It's such a great story, I just loved it,
With the moving finger, it was a bad story, and so I didn't mind the looser adaptation. But this one, I prefer. I'm going to kill all of you.
The dogs are going insane, but we're gonna have to let's start to wrap this up because we need to talk about upcoming.
I mean, my notes on this, I wanted to ask you what you thought of the Bloodbath at the end, because it's like, one murder, conversation, I did want to ask you about that. I think there is again, in Christie works, I find a lot of paralleling of characters where, like you were saying, between Hinge and Leticia, and not so much Bunny and... Murgatroyd, but those two characters being kind of more dominant.
There was a mirroring there. Bunny was Dottie, and so was Murgatroyd.
Yeah,
they were both kind of like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But sweethearts.
And then during the lunchtime interrogation / interview / tea and biscuits or tea and cookies with Marple then takes on that role of the more dominant character. Anyway, and I loved the relationship between Craddock and Marple in the Hickson one. But I was going to mention this sort of aspect of queer identity within this whole book. Whether or not you pick up on it, it doesn't detract from it or change it in any way. But when you look at it with current eyes, you're like, And I did like the knowing looks, but in the McEwen adaptation, I did not care for how Hinge looked. She was like
Hinchcliffe.
with her
She had,
jaunty hats and her. She took it. She took it. God bless her.
Yeah, she
the
reminded me
suits.
of Rachel Sterling from Tipping the Velvet.
You thought it was her?
I thought it
And
was
I'm like,
Rachel
no.
Sterling. I'm like, she was in this, but no, she
No.
wasn't. But yeah, she was dressed wildly. Then we watched that one first. We
Yeah.
thought we'd change it up and watch the most modern adaptation first. Then we went and watched Joan Hickson. So I'm like, can't wait to see who they cast for Hinchcliffe. And here she comes out of the hen coop, and she had hair like
awesome.
like Carrot Top, but
Straight
it was
up
like
Brasso.
bang, and it
Yeah.
was like bang, and it was like going up the
Brillo
sides.
pads. Yeah.
I was like laughing my butt off.
Outstanding.
It was
And
outstanding.
you gotta love Hinge, and she's, Murgatroyd's asking her, what does this all mean, this murder announcement, and she's like, a good drink. I did appreciate that.
Yeah, she was ready for a drink.
It's a free drink. And then her absolute heartbreak and
Don't worry about
anguish when Murgatroyd is killed. That comes across in both adaptations.
And in the book, I really liked how she was like lunging across the table.
I'm going to kill you.
I'm going to kill you. And that was real.
yeah.
That was real grief
Yeah.
and anger. And I
And
really
I think
appreciate
at that point you can't be like, well, no roommates like each other that much.
Yeah. So I really appreciate that about Christie, that she's writing this in the 50s or whatever she is,
Yeah.
and she's like, that's obvious. That was a part of life back then too.
Yeah.
Gay people have been around forever. People.
No.
They've been around, and
No.
Christie was writing about them, and just and not in a bad way.
She took the
treated
right
them-
side of history, and so now it just lends itself to a longer
She
shelf
wrote
life.
them respectfully.
Yeah. Or
So-
foolishly if they were. I mean, I felt like the guy in The Moving Finger was a pain in the ass.
Yes. Well, we love this book. I have to say that out of how many we've done, like four Marple a month so far, and out of all of them, we had a murder at the vicarage, we had the body in the library, we had the moving finger, and then a murder is announced. This one by far is the favorite so far.
Seriously.
Yes,
Good for you.
I did enjoy this one the most.
It's such a great premise. That was
What-
one of the I saw the Hickson one when I was a kid, and I was telling Peggy I was a little too young to have watched it. And so I also remember one particular murder involving a nose, just getting ahead of that, in a pocket full of rye. And to this day, I won't look at that scene. And so when Murgatroyd died, that was the scene that I caught in this episode. I think my grandmother was babysitting, and I always loved the how scared I was watching those. I don't like the jump scares.
Yeah.
But that sort of, combined with Scooby-Dooing who was actually responsible, and then not being
sweet?
able to sleep,
Isn't
and then
she
getting in
sweet?
trouble the next morning.
Oh, that's so endearing.
But I do distinctly remember that adaptation. Yeah.
It was wonderful to watch it with you. So now we're going to announce March's read. So I'm hoping to upload this video tonight or tomorrow, which would be around March 3rd. So sorry for just being a couple days late with the wrap up, but it's the March mystery read. We have a longer month, and it's a smaller volume. The Marple a month for March is They Do It with Mirrors. Okay, so find if you have a copy of this. It's, as you can see, it's definitely a slimmer read than this guy here. Okay, so we could get this done pretty quickly.
Oh yeah.
It's little over 200 pages. It's going to be a really quick read. So let me give you the brief synopsis on what our Marple a month is. Real simple. Miss Marple senses danger when she visits a friend living in Stonygates, a rehabilitation center. Her fears are confirmed when someone shoots at the administrator. Although he is not injured, a mysterious visitor is less fortunate, shot dead simultaneously in another part of the building. Pure coincidence? It never is, right? Miss Marple thinks not, and must use all her cunning to solve the riddle of the stranger's visit and his murder. Short and sweet, looks like. A little over 200 pages on this mystery. What do you have any insights or?
I can't remember.
Do you remember
because
the
I
story?
can't remember it. I think I remember it, and I want to say it's much more of a plot-driven whodunit than character-based.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I could be thinking of something else though.
Well, let me tell you, these new editions that William Morrow put out, each one has a little element on the front, okay, that would indicate something about the story. Whereas this one, a murder is announced, it has the clock, like is going to be announced at 6:30. Yeah, go back. Well, I don't know if yours does.
Nah.
So what is intriguing to me about They Do It with Mirrors is I'm wondering how this comes into play. It's a typewriter. like a novel, maybe.
Then I don't remember what the book is about.
The typewriter is going to come into play at some point. I know that much. So I kind of been looking for these little hints on these new editions. So yeah, join us for the March Marple a Month. They do it with mirrors, and we'll do another hour-long wrap-up, it appears.
There was just so much to like here. There's so much to like. So if you're watching, and I don't know why you would still be watching, maybe the laundry is taking longer this evening, and you haven't read the book, read it. It's really good. It's really a joy to read.
It's really, yes, and there's just a whole, just a variety of characters, and again, witty, just witticisms abound, okay? I just love it. She just has such an ear for how people talk, and I just love it. What else can I say?
Yeah.
We loved it.
We loved it.
What did you guys think?
Comment below. Yeah,
and
rate the book so far.
Yeah, and Martine loves replying to comments in the.
I don't check them often enough, but you guys are awesome, so thank you.
Yeah, and she loves replying to you guys and having conversations. So indulge her, indulge me.
Indulge me.
If you have other insights about the novel or the characters or any of the adaptations, I'm serious. Get down in there into the comments. Drop a line, because Martine. She
I have
lives
nothing else to do. It's either that or work, so please.
And I'll reply too as soon as I can. As you know me, but I've got like 18 books I have to read, right? I'm always reading 18 books, is that what you say?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But I'll reply as soon as I can. We just thank you for just coming along with us on this journey. I'm going to project a little, if you're still around, the two people that might still be.
Hi, Bill.
And I'm over. Yeah, hi, Bill. And I think Bill will be happy to hear this. So we're having so much fun with this Marple a Month series that we're doing, that when we finish the last Marple, we've decided we're not going to stop. Now we're after Marple is done, we're going to continue on, and we're going to tackle the Hercule Poirot.
Well, but before that, I didn't know you were committing to that. That's news. Oh my God, we're going to be 87. We're going to be Miss Marple age going, I just felt like the axe murder was inefficient.
Yeah. We're going to take a...
But after, so this was my question when we were watching, when we're done with these books, do we go ahead and do the newer short stories?
Oh, sorry, I forgot about that.
And I think we're going to.
Oh, I had that book right there.
Yeah, it's
that hardcover. Do you see that one on top? There is a but before we get to the Hercule Poirot series, and we'll think up a neat little name for that series. When we've done the last Marple novel, this is the most recent book, and I know when it came out, the publisher sent this to me. They're like, we'd like to, and this is what generated this whole idea about doing a Marple a month. They sent me the copies.
I think I came back shorter.
You did come back shorter, honey. But we're going to tackle this, which are the 12 new mysteries. Okay, and these are all written by contemporary writers today.
Yeah.
Ruth Ware is in here. I'm recognizing a lot of names. Kate Moss, not the
actress,
not the model.
No, or the model. Sorry. Yeah.
Kate Moss with an E on the end. So yeah, these are all 12 short stories, right?
And they are. The compilation is available on Audible as an Audible. And Alex Kingston is one of the narrators, and she's wonderful. Yeah.
So we're going to tackle this to sum up our Marple a Month endeavor, which we still have many more Marples to go. So I'm thinking by fall we'll be wrapping up the Marple mysteries. No?
I think it's next year.
I don't know. This is how many books I got over there is what I have, but we'll see. There could be more. Either way, guys, just know in the future we'll keep going with Hercule Poirot.
No, you're right. October, November.
Yeah, by fall we'll be done with the Marples, and we'll move into her other, and probably her most famous detective is Poirot. And I know Bill Rutenberg loves his Poirot.
What's not to love?
I know. I cut my teeth on Poirot, and I've come late to the Marple scene, and I'm really enjoying Miss Marple.
If we're going to do that, I would also put in the recommendation that people read David Suchet's autobiography or memoir.
Okay.
Because it's definitely tied into... He's got a great take on Marple, obviously, but he's also able to enunciate it. So I would pull that in as part of the project.
That sounds great.
And if you have any naming ideas for the Poirot thing.
Yes. Give us a great name. You can make the
a
tag.
mustache a month.
Oh,
no, it's too much like a Marple a month.
Well, right. It doesn't have to be a month. It can be something else, but we'll think on that. And if you have any great ideas, drop them in the comments below. All right, we are at 59 minutes and 21 seconds.
Well, let's just hang out here and say nothing.
No, we gotta stay. We gotta go. All right, guys. So we gotta get this uploaded to you. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy. They do it with murders. They do it with murders.
Well, they do. And then sometimes murders do it with mirrors. Sometimes
They do it with murders.
It's a brand new book.
As they do it with mirrors, guys. So that's your Marple a month
It's a
for
team
March.
up with Poirot and Marple. They do it with murders.
It's going to be fun. So come along with us on that ride. Come back for another hour of joyful,
Hijinks.
yes,
Thanks,
hijinks, and as we deconstruct that novel and both the adaptations. In the meantime, we look forward to your comments. Thanks for sticking with us. This was a long one, guys, but a great book.
Sorry.
A Murder is Announced. My favorite so far.
Yeah.
All right. See you soon, BookTube.
Bye.
Bye.